Welcome back. An American bishop investigated by the Vatican following his criticism of Pope Francis has vowed to remain in office. Bishop Joseph Strickland of Texas is championed by many for his staunch defence of the unborn, marriage and the traditional Latin Mass, and of course Catholic Orthodoxy. But he has also been critical of the leadership of Pope Francis, whom he said in a tweet in May was undermining the deposit of faith, adding that Catholics should follow Jesus. Controversial. To discuss this, I'm joined by Dr. Gavin Ashenden. Should it be controversial to say follow Jesus as a Catholic bishop?
Well, it's always been controversial to say follow Jesus, and sometimes it's more controversial than others. This looks like it's one of those times, so it shouldn't be, but it is.
Dr. Gavin Ashenden, what is going on over there in Rome? We've got, it's not just Bishop Strickland that's being attacked, and of course we don't know what's going to happen because he hasn't met with the Pope yet, so he may be asked to resign, he may not be. But it seems to me that the Pope is stacking the deck, and he's just pushed a load of liberals into the House of Cardinals, which essentially means that the next time there's an election for the Pope, it could potentially be another Francis.
Well, that's one way of looking at it, but I think probably we want to put it in a broader, more helpful context, and that is that in the middle of the last century, the Catholic Church tried to reach out to contemporary culture and to build a bridge between the great and profound tradition that had produced saints and miracles and converted most of the world and the culture. But it turns out it made a mistake. It didn't realize how decadent the culture that it was trying to reach out towards was going to become. Now, a number of people at the top of the Catholic Church in their 70s and 80s were really strongly invested in that, and they haven't yet noticed it was a mistake. So one of the things that's going to happen is they're going to die soon, and a new generation of rather wiser, and one might almost say more Catholic people take their place. But the Catholic Church is experiencing what every church and every institution is. That's this great clash of culture. And I think one of the things that will happen is that those people responsible for electing a new pope will see that the mess of the last few years is just a route we don't want to go down, and they'll elect somebody who will take us back in the right direction.
That's if there's time. I know you talk about this younger, wiser generation. I assume you're talking about the traditionalists who are embracing the traditional Latin Mass, for example, a Mass that shows the reverence of that's important to remind people of the real presence, something that the Novus Ordo doesn't always do, but can do if it's done well. But the problem here is that the Bishop of Rome is suppressing all of this. So will there be any traditionalists left?
Oh, yes, of course there will. I mean, the Catholic Church has survived much worse than this. I remember a story of an old lady in my parish when I was an Anglican vicar who converted after the BBC put a show on about the Borgias, who were immensely immoral, lascivious people. And she said that if a church can survive that kind of decadence and still produce someone like St. Teresa of Calcutta, then there must be a God, and he must have his hand on the church. The same thing is true today. There is a God, he has his hand on the church. We'll see this crisis through, as we've seen in others through. And one of the reasons I became a Catholic was my confidence, the way in which the Catholic Church has weathered all the storms. It'll weather this one too, with God's help.
I hope you're right, because it needs to, because all the other denominations are falling apart at the moment and going down the path of wokeness. However, we're not out of the waters yet with the Catholic Church. You've, of course, got this synod of synodality coming up, and the Pope has said he wants secrecy around it, and if journalists want to report on it, they'll have to report on the information given them directly from the Vatican. It seems very, very dodgy to me.
Well, it is, and of course we have to decide whether we're talking spiritually or theologically or politically. So you're talking politically, and that's a sensible political analysis. But the thing is, when the people on the wrong side of the moral line act badly, it falls out badly for them. They've been presenting this as a method of including people on the woke side of the line, saying they wanted accompaniment and openness and everything else, and then they immediately start censoring people like Bishop Strickland, making the whole thing secret, and acting in a way that's completely at odds with what they said their original intentions were. So people won't believe them, and they'll see what the outcome is. And I think human beings have got very good antennae and moral radar. They will decide this present regime is not to be trusted, and we'll get a new regime.
Well, I hope it happens in time, because, of course, Opus Dei are talking about having to restructure, and the FSSP are worried about laicization and being potentially disbanded. So is there time to save these organizations?
Well, the Bible makes a distinction between chronos and kairos, our time and God's time. In our time, I think things look tricky, I agree, and people are quite worried. But I think in God's time, one of the ways in which we express our belief in God is that he'll work things out in his way. And sometimes he uses human frailty and failure in order to make things even clearer. And I think that's what's happening at the moment. We've got a lot of human frailty and failure, and things were made all the more clear through it.
Dr. Gavin Ashenden, thank you as ever for offering some wisdom and some hope in your message. And I do pray that the Catholic Church elects Cardinal Sarah as your next Bishop of Rome.